She was standing on my porch in the rain. I had not seen Ellie Marsh in 11 months. Not since the reception after Daniel's funeral, when she had stood in the center of his mother's living room, accepting condolences with the particular stillness of a person who has used up everything they had just getting through the morning and is now running on something below reserve. I had said something, I don't remember what. The kind of thing people say. She had looked at me with eyes that were present but very far back, nodded once, and turned to the next person in the line that had formed to tell her how sorry they were. That was the last time, and now she was on my porch in November rain, with her hair dark and flat against her face, and a look that was not the one from the reception, not the hollowed-out endurance look. A different one. The look of a person who has made a decision after a long time of not being ready to make it, and has arrived before the readiness wore off. He asked me to do something, she said. Before he died, I've been trying to figure out if I was allowed to. She had driven 2 hours in the rain to tell me. I opened the door wider. My name is Owen Garrett. I am 36 years old. I have been a high school history teacher for 11 years, which is the kind of job that teaches you, slowly and without announcement, that most of the important things happen in the pauses between the things people say out loud. Daniel Marsh was my best friend for 19 years. We met at 17 in the specific way of certain friendships, thrown together by circumstance, a shared table in a physics class neither of us was passing, and a mutual recognition that was fast and unceasing, and never once needed to be explained. He was the kind of person who made any room more itself, who listened to people as though what they were saying was the most interesting thing he had heard all week, and meant it, who called at 11 on a Tuesday for no reason, except that something had made him think of you, and he thought you should know. He had been diagnosed 14 months before he died. He handled it the way he handled everything, with honesty and dark humor and the specific generosity of a person who is more worried about the people around him than about himself. He made plans. He had conversations. He did, apparently, ask things of people, in the particular way of a man who wanted to get things right before he ran out of time to get them right. He never told me he had asked anything of Ellie. I did not know Ellie well, not in the way you know someone who is yours, not with the accumulated texture of years. I knew her the way you know the person at the center of your best friend's life, through his telling of her, through dinners where I was the third at a table built for two, through the occasional afternoon when the three of us were in a room together, and I watched him watch her with the uncomplicated certainty of a man who had found exactly what he was looking for, and knew it. She was a landscape architect. She was quiet in groups and precise in conversation, and had the quality of paying attention that reminded me, actually, of Daniel. The same willingness to be genuinely interested in whatever was in front of her. She laughed at things that were actually funny. She had opinions about rivers. I mean that literally. She once spent 20 minutes explaining the engineered restoration of a watershed in a way that made me care about it deeply, which I had not previously anticipated caring about. I had liked her enormously, and kept a careful distance, because she was Daniel's, and that is the kind of distance you keep without thinking about it, the way you don't look directly at certain lights, because you understand, without examining it, that they are not meant to be looked at directly. After he died, I kept the distance for different reasons. 11 months of different reasons. And then she was on my porch. I made tea. It is what I do when I do not know what to do, a functional displacement activity that my mother instilled in me, and that I have never managed to replace with anything more sophisticated. Ellie sat at the kitchen table with her coat still on, hands around the mug, and did not try to fill the silence while the kettle was going. which told me something about how she had spent the last year. You learn to let silence be itself when there is no good alternative to it. The rain was coming down harder now. I could hear it against the window above the sink. He asked you something, I said. I sat across from her. Before he died. Yes, when? March, she said. 2 months before. She looked at the mug. He was having a good week, one of the last real ones. We were just sitting in the kitchen and it wasn't a dramatic conversation. That was how he did things. He just said it, like he was mentioning something he'd been thinking about. I knew exactly how he did things. That was precisely how he did things. What did he say? I said. She looked up. He said he wanted to ask me something and he needed me to not answer right away. He needed me to sit with it. She paused. He said that Owen Garrett was the best person he had ever known, and that he had been watching me not be known by the right people for too long, and that he thought, if things had been different, that we would have found each other eventually anyway. She stopped. Her voice was steady. She had practiced this, I understood, not to make it easier to say, but to make it possible to say. He said he wasn't asking me to do anything. He said he was just asking me to leave the door open. When I was ready, if I was ever ready. The kitchen was very quiet. He said that? I said. He said you would probably not bring it up yourself in 100 years because you would think it was wrong to. Something that was almost a smile moved across her face. He said that was one of your better and more frustrating qualities. That landed the way things land when they are completely true and spoken in someone else's voice. He wasn't wrong, I said. No, she said. He usually wasn't. We sat with it for a while. There is no other way to describe it. The tea went from hot to warm. The rain kept up. I thought about March, about the last good weeks, about what he had been doing in them, the calls he had made, the things he had said. I couldn't come before now, Ellie said. I want you to understand that. It wasn't. It wasn't about you. And it wasn't about what he said. It was just that there was no version of before now where I was a whole enough person to have this conversation without it being unfair to both of us. I know, I said. I'm not sure I'm whole now, she said. I'm not sure that's the right word for where I am. But I'm here. I'm in the world again in a way that feels real. She looked at her hands. Daniel used to say grief was like weather. That you didn't fight it, you just dressed for it. And eventually the season changed. That sounds like him. It was almost unbearably him, she said quietly. Something in my chest moved, not shifted. Moved. The specific grief of hearing someone speak someone else's language. The way the person's voice lives in the people who love them. I'm not here to make anything happen, she said. I want to be clear about that. I'm not. I came because I felt like I owed him the delivery of the message, and I owed you the choice of what to do with it, and I owed myself the thing of having done it, whatever comes next. She looked at me directly. I'm not fragile, Owen. I'm tired. And I'm still putting things back together, but I'm not breakable. I know you'll think about that. I know you'll think you have to be careful. I will think about that, I said. He knew you'd think about that too, she said. He said to tell you that he would not have asked it of me, and he would not have wanted me to come here if he thought it was the wrong thing. He said. She paused. She pressed her lips together once, managing, he said, to trust him one more time. The room held that. I looked at the table, then at the window. Then, at her. How was the drive? I said. She looked at me for a second. Uncertain, wet, she said. Are you driving back tonight? I was going to. It's 9 o'clock. I said. It's raining hard. You've just had a conversation that cost you something. I looked at the mug. There's a guest room. It has a good bed and a terrible lamp. Stay, drive back in the morning. She looked at me for a long time, parsing it, whether it was too much, whether it was pressure, whether it was the careful version or the other one. It was neither, exactly. It was just the practical version of you matter, and I'm not ready for you to leave yet. Spoken in the language of logistics, which is sometimes the only language available. Okay, she said. Quietly. Okay, she looked at the mug. He was right, she said, about you. He was right about most things, I said. It was one of his less endearing qualities. She laughed then, small, genuine, surprised out of her in the way that real laughs always are. She put her hand over her mouth after. Reflex. The habit of a year of catching her own levity before it got out. Then she lowered her hand and let it be there. The laugh in the warm kitchen with the rain outside. He used to laugh at everything, she said. Not sad, just true. I know. I forgot, for a while, that I was allowed to. I know that too. She looked at me. The specific look of a person recognizing that they are in a room with someone who understands the shape of what they are carrying. Not the same grief, not the same loss, but the same person, the same absence, the same particular silence where Daniel Marsh used to be. I missed talking to someone who knew him, she said. Then stay, I said. We can talk about him. We don't have to be careful about what we say. Her fingers loosened around the mug. That would be, she stopped. Yes, she said. I would like that. We talked until past midnight. Not about what he had asked, not about whatever came next or didn't come next. Just about him. The 19 years I had of him. The 8 she had, the overlapping parts and the parts that were each of ours alone. I told her about the physics class and the failed projects and the Tuesday night calls. She told me about the first time she knew, the specific ordinary moment, in a car, in traffic, looking at him looking out the window, when she understood it was him. Did you tell him right away? I asked. God, no, she said. I waited 4 months and then I left a post-it note on his laptop. What did it say? She smiled. It said, I think this is probably your fault. That's perfect, I said. He kept it, she said. He kept it for 8 years. It was in his wallet when he died. The room was very quiet. Not the bad kind. He kept everything, I said. He kept everything, she agreed. She drove home the next morning in thin winter light, the rain gone, the roads clear. She paused at the door and said thank you in the tone of a word that means more than itself. I said drive safe in the same tone. We were careful after that. Not the distance kind of careful, the other kind. The kind that means you understand the value of what you are handling. We wrote letters before we called. We called before we met. We were in no hurry, both of us, because we had each learned in the sharpest possible way what hurry costs and what it leaves out. 8 months later, on a Sunday, she showed me a plan she had drawn for a small garden, native plants, a bench, a river stone border, something that would come back every year without being asked to. She said it was for a corner of my yard, if I wanted it. I said yes. She put it in on a Saturday in late October, both of us in old clothes, dirt on our hands, the kind of afternoon that earns itself. At one point I looked at her crouched over the river stones, deciding their arrangement with the concentration of someone for whom this was not decoration, but design, and I thought, he was right. Simply and completely. He had known both of us well enough and loved both of us clearly enough to see a thing we could not see from where we were standing. That is the thing about people who pay attention. They see ahead. 2 years later, when people asked, and people did ask, because the story had the kind of shape that makes people want to know, I told them the truth. That my best friend had known me better than I knew myself. That he had sent the right message to the right person at exactly the right time, which was after he was gone. Which was the only time I would have been ready to hear it. Ellie told them a shorter version. She said Daniel had made a request, and she had honored it, and that was that. She always left out the post-it note. That one was hers. But she told me once, quietly, in the kitchen, our kitchen now, that she thought he had known before she did. That he had seen it in her the way he saw everything, early and clearly, and without making a fuss about it. She said he had probably been waiting, the entire time, for her to catch up to what he already knew. It wasn't new. It had probably always been her. Here's what I keep thinking about. Has anyone in your life ever seen something in you, or for you, that you couldn't see for yourself? And is there something someone asked of you before they left that you're still deciding whether you're ready to do? Tell me below. And if you've been here a while, you know how this ends. Subscribe. Every story starts with someone saying something that takes years to be ready to hear. This one started at a door. In the rain, with a message 11 months in the making.